Hey y'all, today we're making homemade dairy essentials. Okay, so first up we're going to make heavy cream. So I'm going to make this two different ways. I'm going to make it, well, not two different ways. I'm going to use regular whole milk, and then I'm also going to try lactose-free milk. I can't really do a lot of dairy, so I wanted to do this just to see if the lactose-free would work as well as regular whole milk. Okay, so I'm going to experiment a little for y'all. So I'm adding to my jar and my cup. I did that so I could tell them apart and wouldn't forget which one was which. I'm adding in 3/4 of a cup of each one of these. And you're going to need to let these sit out until they come up to room temperature. We don't want these freezing cold for this recipe. But I'm not going to give you a time that you need to do that because it's going to depend on how cold or warm your kitchen is. So you just want to let these sit out for a little while until they've come up to room temperature, okay? So now that they have come up to room temperature, I let mine sit out for probably close to 2 hours. We're going to need some butter. Now I'm going to use a stick of butter because each container is going to need a 1/4 cup. So it's 3/4 of a cup of milk and 1/4 of a cup of melted butter. But I'm also going to let my butter sit out and cool down just a little bit. I don't want to put it in there super hot, okay? So I let that sit out for maybe 30 or 45 minutes. You don't want it to get back to solid, but you do want, you don't want it to be boiling straight out of the microwave either. So I'm just stirring mine up so that I can get all the stuff mixed back in with it, where it separates, where the butter tries to separate. So I am going to pour in this butter into the milk. You're going to pour it in slowly, and I'm using this little frother. You can use a whisk or whatever you have, but you're only going to want to do this for about 30 seconds. If you know anything about heavy cream, the more you whip it, the more like into cream it's going to get, and we don't want it to get that far. Does that make sense? So you're going to just slowly add your butter in while you're mixing it with whatever you're mixing it with, but you do not want to mix it any longer than about 30 seconds because then it's going to try to get solid on you, okay? And one thing I will tell you with this particular recipe, and I did a little research when it happened to me, and other people said the same thing happened to them. You can't whip this into whipping cream. That's why I said this is heavy cream and not heavy whipping cream. I don't know if the words are, make a difference. But if you're like, you can't make whipped cream out of this. It won't set up properly, like it won't get there. But this is going to be more for if you have a recipe, like a soup or something like that, that calls for heavy whipping cream or heavy cream. That's what this will be used for, okay? So if you're trying to make whipped cream for, a cake or pie or something, this is probably not the route you want to take. At least for me and the others that I saw, we couldn't get it there. But this is perfect for anything you need to add into a recipe. And that's it. Put it in a jar and then shake it up good when you're ready to use it. And of course, keep it in the fridge. Next up, we're doing sweetened condensed milk. Now, I added, I don't know why I cut out the pouring into the pot, but here we are. So I added 2.5 cups of whole milk, and I'm adding 1 1/4 cups of sugar. Now, you're going to want to stir or whisk this sugar in here real good, and you're going to want to heat this up almost kind of to bring it almost to a boil because you want to make sure that the sugar melts. If you don't get your sugar to melt into your milk before you start the simmering process, then your final product might be a little bit grainy. Now, if it is a little grainy because your sugar didn't melt all the way, it's not the end of the world. You can still use it. But if you want it to be that really smooth consistency, then you need to make sure that that sugar gets good and melted before you start simmering it, okay? So once you get it hot, your sugar's melted, and you start the simmering process, you're going to let this simmer for a good, I think mine went for about 45 minutes or so, just on a simmer, like I said, and then you're going to just stir it occasionally. I mean, don't walk away from it because, you know, if milk starts to get hot, I don't know. I have an electric stove, obviously, and it is so hard to control the temperature on this thing. It's very frustrating when you're cooking stuff that need to be a steady, you know, temperature. So anyway, just saying that to say don't walk away from it, but you don't have to stir it constantly either, okay? You just want to come in every minute or so just to make sure that you're not burning anything to the bottom of your pan, you know, just to make sure it doesn't get too hot, okay? So it's going to reduce down because it's going to thicken, right? If you've ever seen sweetened condensed milk, you know it's going to reduce, you know, it's going to be thick. So I started out in this jar, and then I ended up towards the end, in all of these, I end up putting them in smaller jars just because that's what they fit into better. So this is what it looks like when it's pretty much done. Mine is never super thick in the pan. Now, if I kept going, it would get thick in the pan, I guess. But I just get it to this point. It has changed in color and it's thick, like it coats the back of a spoon. You know what I mean? Like if you stick a spoon in, it will run off, but some of it will stay on the spoon. Does that make sense? So anyway, you pour this into your container and then you're just going to let this sit on the counter until it cools completely down. That's what it's going to look like. It's going to be, you know, pretty dang thick, as you can see. And then I'm just going to stir this up so I can just kind of show y'all that it's not a solid mass, that it is the consistency of heavy whipping, not heavy whipping cream, goodness, what am I cooking? Of sweetened condensed milk. So yeah, it gets nice and smooth and yummy. Look at that, y'all. It is so good. It tastes divine. I mean, it's the same thing that's in the can, but y'all, this tastes so much better. And one thing I will say about all of these, because we made these with milk, I like to use them up by whatever the used update is on the milk. So if your milk expires on November 1st, then this would need to be used before November 1st. Does that make sense? That's the way I do it. Now, some other people may say something else, but that is just what works for me. So that is our sweetened condensed milk, y'all. That will make enough, like whatever is in your can of sweetened condensed milk. Now, you just made that at home. And it's super, super easy, and it tastes really, really good, y'all. Just put it in the fridge when it's done. So the last thing we're going to make is evaporated milk, and it's exactly what it sounds like. So I put 2 cups of milk into my pan. You're going to want this on sort of a medium-low heat. Don't let this boil, okay? But you can see it's kind of bubbling around the edges. It'll start kind of separating that fat out. You see where it's kind of sticking on the side of the pot there? But you're going to let this go if it starts to bubble, turn it down a little bit. You're going to just want to simmer this for about 30-45 minutes. You just want to reduce this by half. So we went in with 2 cups. We want to end with 1 cup, okay? Doesn't have to be exact. You don't have to actually go in there and say, am I at a cup yet? You know what I mean? But that's what we're going to get to, evaporated milk. So all we're doing is evaporating some of this milk. Now it is going to have little, I don't know what is it curds? Is it whey? I don't know what it is. Is that even what it is with milk? But you'll get kind of little solid pieces, kind of thick parts, and we don't want that in our evaporated milk. So you see on the bottom of the pan there where you've got like kind of little chunks. So I put my little fine strainer into my jar funnel, like my cannon funnel. I can't talk tonight, y'all. And then I just let that sit there and strain. It only takes a couple of minutes. And you're just going to strain all that thick stuff out of there and get all that good liquid down in there. So you end up, of course, like I said, it's evaporated milk. We evaporated by half. So you end up with a cup of evaporated milk. So you'll know whatever your recipe calls for, you'll know how much you need. Now, if you need a ton of evaporated milk, then start out with a lot more milk in the beginning. And you don't have to use whole milk for these. I just did because I had it and I knew I wouldn't use it in anything else. So that's why I used the whole milk in this. But y'all, these are so easy. Same thing with this one. I just let it sit out until it cools down. So obviously a couple of these take a long time to make. So if you need them in a pinch, you're going to have to just run to the store and get them. But if you have time to make them ahead, these are so good and they're really easy, y'all. Okay, that is all I've got for y'all today, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. Bye, y'all.